So I hope everyone came through safely. I hope everyone has a safe ride home. It's been a beautiful day so far. I see no reason why it shouldn't be. So without further ado, I will ask Mr. Larry Paquette for our invocation.
Everybody hear me okay? Our Heavenly Father, once again we meet as the American Legion, veterans of 4 great wars. Our organization goes back over half a century. During that time we have stood for God and country. We have worked to promote Americanism and programs for the veterans. We have been concerned for our local communities and for the youth of our nation. Guide us in our deliberations during this meeting. Keep us alert to our opportunities and responsibilities as citizens. Make us deserving of the freedom handed down to our generation by those who sacrificed so much in the past. May all that is said and done in this hour reflect credit upon us all, our community, our organization, and our nation. Amen.
Thank you, Larry. I will now ask Miss Amy Jarvis for our national anthem. Please remain standing. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave?
There have already been volunteers asked to lay the wreaths that are going to be presented later on today. I would ask those volunteers at this time to come and collect their respective wreaths to be ready to be laid at a later time in this program. So if that could happen right now, I'd appreciate it. I now have the pleasure to introduce a man that I got to know about 5 years ago, who, when I was asked to do this job, I had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to turn. I didn't know what to do. So I went and I found out that Mr. Bob Wheeler was the band to see. Mr. Bob Wheeler, I'd like to introduce you as the band who is really responsible for Vermont Thunder. Bob Wheeler.
Thank you, Gary. It's been an honor and a pleasure to head up Vermont Thunder for the last, I don't know, about 7 or 8 years, I guess I've done it. Unfortunately, this has got to be the last year due to instances like we just had over here. The gentleman apparently has a lot of money to spend on tires, because I sure couldn't afford to do that. I wouldn't want to do it. It's reasons like that, some of the other things, antics that have gone on over the last 4 or 5 years. But I'm happy to say that I just talked with the V-Trans truck that was tail gunner. We had absolutely no instances coming up from Sharon or coming up from Richmond today. No accidents, very little slinking. I want to thank you all that participated in this ride over the years to honor the veterans that have passed, that have given their lives for our freedoms so that we can enjoy days like today. It's my hope that somebody will maybe pick this up and take it in under a different name than Vermont Thunder. I don't know if that's going to happen. The main reason that we're giving up is because of the liability in it. We just can't afford to lose everything we own. So unfortunately, there's a few, as in most cases, there's a few that have ruined it for everybody. We've had a really good run, 25 years. And again, I want to thank everybody that's participated. I want to especially thank the Village of Venusburg, the Town of Venusburg band that's participated, and especially Gary Benjamin, who's headed up the ceremony up here for the last 7 years. Again, I thank you all, and please, please have a safe ride home.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. It's been fun. My wife asks me every year, why are you doing this? And I have to say, I don't know. But once it all comes together, it's worth every minute. Okay, I am now going to ask the band to play Armed Forces Salute. And what I would like, I ask this every year and I don't get much participation. This is your last chance, okay? This is your last chance to prove who you are and what branch you serve. So when you hear the music from your branch, I would love you to raise your hand. If you're bashful, just raise your hand. If you are joyful, jump up and down, okay? So let's show our appreciation for our branch of service when they play Armed Forces Salute. Thank you. Thank you all for participating, those of you who did. A few of you were pretty jubilant, some of you are pretty tame, but that's okay. That's okay. If there's anyone here today that would like to say something before we end our ceremony, I would ask that you come to the stage now so that we'd have time to get you into the program if you wish to speak. Anyone that wishes to say anything at all is okay. I now ask my volunteer, the commander of the Enosburg Post, to step up to the table. I'm going to explain the table. Each Memorial Day, thousands of motorcycles ride in rolling thunder to the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C. to educate the public that missing American prisoners of war were left behind after all past wars, to help correct the past and to prevent the future veterans should they become the same fate. Vermont Thunder begins at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Sharon, Vermont, and runs Interstate 89, the Vietnam Veterans Highway, whose distance is the number of Vermonters killed in the war. Fitfully, the run ends in Enosburg Falls at the granite monument marking the apex of the moving Vietnam Memorial Wall, which is over to your left, my right. The remembered service is the table. The small table is set for one, symbolizing the fact that members of our armed forces are missing from our ranks. The table is small, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his aggressors. The tablecloth is white, symbolic of the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. The single rose placed on the table is a reminder of the continual suffering of the families and loved ones of those unaccounted for. A slice of lemon on the plate reminds us of their bitter fate. The salt sprinkled on the plate reminds us of the countless fallen tears of families as they await. A glass is inverted. They cannot toast with us at this time. The chair is empty. They are not here. The single burning candle is reminiscent of the light of hope, which lives in our hearts to illuminate their way home, away from their captors, to open arms of the grateful nation. The American flag reminds us of the many of them not returned and have paid the supreme sacrifice to ensure our freedom. Okay, the village of Enosburg Falls proudly traces its roots to land given to Major General Roger Enos by Ethan Allen and chartered in March of 1780. Residents of Enosburg and all over Vermont have proudly served their country in peace and war. The Doughboy, the statue that's behind you, was erected in the 1930s in honor of World War I American infantrymen called doughboys, because, it is said, their large brass buttons resemble flour dumplings cooked in soup. Honor Roll monuments recognize the sacrifice of our residents, veterans, in service to their country during World War I, World War II, and Korea and Vietnam. A granite monument marks the location of the apex of the Vietnam moving wall during the village to the village in 1997. Now I ask, are any veterans of Korea era? Are there any veterans of Korea era here present today? World War II or Korea? Okay, sorry. Turn to your backs, and the veterans of the Vietnam era, please turn to your left and pay your respects while the wreaths are being placed. The naval wreath will be placed after the ceremony at the Bridge of Flowers down at the river. So please lay the wreath. While the wreaths are being placed, normally at this time we would have a guest speaker come to the podium and present a fitting tribute to today. Due to the fact that this is the 25th anniversary of Vermont Thunder and that it is the final day of Vermont Thunder, I was in controversy as to having who to speak. And I was sitting in my living room one night, basically chattering to myself, trying to figure out who I was going to ask to come and be a speaker. And my wife said to me, "This is the last year, right?" And I said, "Yeah." She says, "Instead of a speaker, why don't you do the history of Vermont Thunder?" And the light went off. So what I did is what I've done in the past. I went to my good buddy, Bob Wheeler, and I said, "I need help because I have not been associated with Vermont Thunder long enough to know the history of Vermont Thunder." And Bob came to my rescue. So, Bill Fitzpatrick and his wife had gone to Washington, D.C. for Rolling Thunder in 1991. This was his first trip to the Wall, and it was a very emotional experience for him. The following year, Bill had no definite plans for Memorial Day weekend, and being involved with Freedom of the Road, he proposed to them an idea he had for a ride from the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Sharon up Interstate 89, also known as the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Highway to Swanton. It just so happened that this was 121 miles. Also, the number of the names on the memorial were 121. This ride would be to honor those men from Vermont that had given their lives in Vietnam. The members of Freedom of the Road felt this was a veteran issue, so Bill informed them he was going to do the ride anyway, and if anyone wanted to join him, they were welcome to. Before the meeting was over, Mike Pendris, Charlie Amico, and some others told Bill they would be there, and so the Vermont Thunder crew was born. For many years, these three planned and executed the ride until others such as Bob Woobenhurst, Nick and Tina Hathaway, Reggie and Rose Munger joined the crew. As Bill and Charlie moved out of Vermont, Bob Wheeler, Dave Eckert, Mike and Cindy Gilholy were added to the crew for planning purposes. Eventually, Mike Paradis also moved out of Vermont, leaving Thunder to the hands of Bob Wheeler and the crew. Eventually, Pat Bowdy and Laura Reed were added to round out the members. Somewhere along the line, Enosburg had proposed that the ride end there instead of Swanton. And I can honestly tell you that my brother-in-law, Lloyd Touchette, was the guy that went to the wall to make this happen. He talked them into coming to Enosburg. Due to the size it had grown and space available, this was contemplated for a couple of years before it actually happened, due to concerns of riding Route 105 after such a long ride, but the decision was made, and we were all thankful for the village of Enosburg for the warm welcome and reception we have had through the years. We are also especially thankful to the Enosburg American Legion under the leadership of Lloyd Touchette and Gary Benjamin for organizing and executing the ceremonies in Enosburg after the ride. We would also like to thank the Enosburg Town Band for their participation, as well as the singers that have sung the national anthem. Amy Jarvis is beyond reproach. Throughout the years, the various law enforcement and local municipalities have been very cooperative. Also, the Vermont Agency of Transportation has escorted us during the ride. Vermont Thunder has helped many veterans throughout the years due to the generous donations. and all funds after buying the Thunder products have been used for helping veterans remain in their homes and to help them pay necessary bills. The first ride consisted of 17 bikes, and the last 4 years have seen over 1,000 bikers participate in this ride. I am sure Bill and the original team had no idea it would grow to this size. With something this size come larger problems, so it is with great sorrow and regret that we announce that this being our 25th anniversary, it will also be the final ride for Vermont Thunder Incorporated. We would like to thank all of that participated in this great ride, to honor all of our veterans and first responders through the years, and wish you all a safe and enjoyable ride home. Thank you from Vermont Thunder Crew. As you probably already know, there is a luncheon set up for you guys all at the American Legion Hall, which is to my right, just on the other side of Champlain Chevrolet here. I ask that all of you go over. Serge McCure has put in a lot of work every year. He has done great things for us every year. He's a person that needs to be recognized. I also need to recognize Champlain Chevrolet for also making sure there was always a hole open for you guys to park. Peanut for the luncheon. In the years past, we've always had a speaker, so I would thank the speaker. The wreaths, from the people that have made the wreaths for us, thank you for the wreaths. The speaker system. If you were here a few years ago, you realized that our speaker system was less than adequate, and that has been taken care of. So we thank you very much for doing that. The Honor Guard for always being there. I especially have to thank Bob Wheeler, and I mean this sincerely, Bob. You got me through it. And where would I be up here if I didn't have a band behind me? These guys are great. They've always been here. They've always done the job, and I thank them for doing the job that they do. And last but not least, I need to thank DrumAct for making it available for everybody to be able to enjoy the day. So I put my thanks out to them too. So. Is there anyone that would like to say something? Vietnam Chapter 753 has been here every year. Give them a hand.